there's a large Bitcoin contingent that wants additional utility for their Bitcoin. They want to move it beyond just digital gold. And
Right.
Core wants to be that avenue. So like one of the things that'll come out in 2024 after our native wrapping and minting comes on board will be Bitcoin staking and yield. And it's really important to make Bitcoin a yield-bearing asset.
This content is brought to you by Uphold, which is a great crypto platform that I've been using since 2018. Uphold has all the top cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and all the altcoins. In fact, they have 260 plus cryptocurrencies on their platform. You can also trade precious metals, stable coins, and 37 fiat currencies. In addition, they are available in over 150 countries. And this platform is fully reserved. They do audits, so you can trust that your funds are safe, no commingling, no lending out your funds. If you'd like to learn more about Uphold, please visit the link in the description. Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Rines, who is an initial contributor to Core DAO. Core DAO is a global group of contributors building a Bitcoin-powered EVM-compatible blockchain that combines delegated proof of work and delegated proof of stake. Rich, great to have you on.
Awesome to meet. Excited to chat today.
Rich, let's start with your background. Where are you from and where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Boston area, left after college, but I was true like Boston through and through all the way. And then afterwards, I went out to Silicon Valley, really lived the tech dreams, built a variety of businesses, worked for a variety of startups. Awesome kind of place to cut your teeth, make an amazing group of friends, and obviously a pretty big network. And that's also what brought me into crypto.
Yeah, so what was your first encounter with crypto and what was your aha moment?
First encounter is kind of a sad story, almost, if you will. So we heard about it as part of like a directed reading group in college. And directed reading was like this hack on the system. I've been kind of a hacker type my entire life, if you will, but it was like a way to take a really high level course, but do very little work. And we had a professor that was teaching us all about security. And one of the things that came up was cryptography. And this was 2011. So Bitcoin, again, was very new at that point. He was telling us about the Byzantine generals problem. And we were just like dumbfounded by it. We didn't understand the value. Like, oh, this is really cool. It's a hard problem, but like, is there ever going to be anything, whatever? So we kind of just ignored it as like this like interesting novel thing or whatever. I'm pretty sure the professor was buying bags of it because he understood kind of the value that could come out of it. But I didn't really get my aha moment until 2013 as part of like the first Bitcoin, like the second Bitcoin cycle, if you will. And then by the 2017 cycle, I was 100% in. Like it all made sense to me. Once I got from digital gold to kind of the original Ethereum digital oil pitch, then it all clicked and it's been, history ever since.
Oh, for sure. And what led you to be a contributor to Core DAO?
Yeah, so before Core, I was at Coinbase for 3.5 years, leading all the money movements engineering. It was amazing to be at a company when it was a few hundred people, but then when it got to several thousand people, not that far after, it was a tumultuous time. It was so interesting to have a large team, be working on, such amazing global scale features. But I'm a 0 to 1 type person. I've been, helping to build businesses for almost a decade and a half now. So when the opportunity came on board to jump into Core and help them build out the organization, it was something I couldn't say no to, especially where Coinbase was Web 2.5, which I actually think is a key unlock to a lot of like crypto's problems today, is to be less 100% pure play Web 3 and to kind of embrace some of the values and the technology from Web 2. But it was really an amazing opportunity to go on to be on the issuer side, which I had interacted with a bunch at my time at Coinbase, but had never done, full boot.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. So give us an overview of Core and the inner workings and what you guys do.
Yeah, so Core DAO came to market early this year. It was in mainnet in January and then did an airdrop to several million people around the world in February. Prior to that, there was about 4 years of R&D in building the Satoshi Plus consensus. And the Satoshi Plus consensus is a hybrid mechanism that leverages both delegated proof of stake and proof of work. And on the delegated proof of work side, that comes directly from Bitcoin in this trustless relay process. And one of the cool things is, despite only being live for under a year now, almost one out of every 2 Bitcoin blocks is currently being delegated to Core by some of the largest miners and mining pools in the world. So there's been an amazing kind of alignment in crypto economically, and then just in terms of the security mechanism that Core operates on, where a strong Bitcoin leads to a strong Core, and they feed each other as Core gives rewards back to miners. So that was really kind of the core insight, was there's a lot of value of combining both the Bitcoin elements and the Ethereum elements into one plus one equals 3 type story. Because on the Bitcoin side, you have the decentralization of security. On the EVM and the delegated proof of stake side, you have the security and the composability. And that was really kind of an understanding that there's good on both sides. It's not, this either or that the crypto is really known for. Was that if you look at the best parts of each, you can actually combine something that has a much broader scale appeal and can solve a wider variety of problems.
So would it be fair to say the Core blockchain, is that sitting on top of the Bitcoin blockchain, or is separate?
So it's a separate L1. It was really critical to get the alignment with Bitcoin, and that's something that we strive to do, is to be the most Bitcoin aligned chain. And how the relay process works is Bitcoin mining pools, who are the ones that typically produce the blocks in the Bitcoin chain, they add a little bit of data to the OP return field of the Coinbase transaction when they produce the block that says where I want my fees to go, and then where I want the validator that I want to delegate to. So that's fully auditable on the Bitcoin chain. When they produce their blocks roughly every 10 minutes, those get relayed over to Core. Then those are calculated in this 1-week delay to handle reorgs and other kind of edge cases that you wouldn't want to have to deal with. And that's how we combine with the relative stake on a validator, the nodes that are producing blocks in our network.
And I see that you're working with other blockchains from a interoperability standpoint. I see Anchor, Avalanche, and so forth. Can you tell us about those relationships and how those chains or how you're working with them?
For sure. So I think it's helpful to go back to the philosophy of Core. So what I would say is that the Core DAO itself is crypto maxis versus core maxis or anything else, where crypto is the greatest freedom preserving technology that I think we've ever seen. And we view it as our mission to help get the best of breed solutions from not just Core, but from other chains to the masses, because there's so much opportunity there to do good. And if you look at crypto over the last several years, there's been this focus on just scalability at the expense of decentralization and some of these other challenges that have led us farther and farther away from crypto's true ethos back in the Bitcoin days. And that's why Core is so tied to that. It's because we want to have this ability to bring those to people that are in dynamic governments or unstable currencies, the true use cases of crypto, where the most impact can be made for the billions of people around the world that can benefit from that. And that also went to Core's community building. That's one of the reasons that Core has such a large audience. It's because it wanted to find people that could weren't just your average MetaMask users, but the people that could really help take this to the next level of global adoption, which is what crypto really needs. And that same approach goes with our partnerships with chains like Avalanche or different partners like Anchor or Layer Zero. It's a multi-chain world. There's not going to be one blockchain that rules them all. It's going to be a one of N type space, and Core wants to work with the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about the roadmap and vision for Core. What are you guys looking to do in 2024 and let's say 5 years from now? What's the end goal?
Totally. So if you think about the immediate term in 2024, one of the biggest things for Core is its Bitcoin alignment, as I've talked about kind of briefly here. And if you think about Bitcoin, it's done an amazing job as digital gold. It has this ossified base layer. It's protecting 700 some odd billion of assets today. But as we've seen with ordinals, BRC20s, and some of these other projects on Bitcoin, there's a large Bitcoin contingent that wants additional utility for their Bitcoin. They want to move it beyond just digital gold. Right. And Core wants to be that avenue. So one of the things that will come out in 2024 after our native wrapping and minting comes on board will be Bitcoin staking and yield. And it's really important to make Bitcoin a yield-bearing asset, similar to what happened with Ethereum. You can see all these additional use cases that have come onto Ethereum over the last year since the merge and everything of that nature. And there's several other Bitcoin alignments that I won't, or several other Bitcoin pieces of the roadmap that I won't go into too much detail here, but it's really important for us to give that utility. And then on a 5-year level, what are some of the things? And again, we're not discounting the short term, but it's really the focus is Core wants to be the most utilized blockchain. It wants real users. And that's why Core has such a focus on community. It's when developers want to launch on Core, we want them to have actual users that can use their products, not just build cool tech. And I think that's been one of the things that we've seen, particularly since the 2021 cycle, is there's amazing technologists out there, but there's just this lack of users. And if there's a lack of users, it's very difficult to build a sustainable long-term business. It's easy to maybe build a project, but not a real business. And it's really getting the space to a point of maturity where people can launch, global scale businesses is something that Core wants to be behind and wants to support. So that's kind of the longer term piece, but obviously there's a lot of steps along the way.
Yeah, and to your point, folks are looking for additional utility around Bitcoin, but it's blockchain. It only has so much capabilities, and we've seen the slowdown of the network with different initiatives and things being built on it. So it's great that there's a solution. These solutions are coming out, and Core being one of them. Tell us about how you're working with the Bitcoin miners. You mentioned that. Are you working with some of the largest Bitcoin miners, specifically ones in the US or global? Tell us about that.
So without giving specific names, it's all very auditable on the Bitcoin chain. So if you look at the blocks, you can see who produced the blocks. So it's all discoverable, but we don't like to talk about that as much publicly. But the idea is there's these mining pools out there that are backed by the largest miners in the world, and they have a quite global audience in terms of where their hash rate comes from. But there's only a certain amount of pools that really are responsible for producing the blocks. And we found a very receptive community in the mining pools, because at the end of the day, their business is very tightly coupled to Bitcoin price, and then of course Bitcoin block rewards. And if you think about events like the halving that are coming up, it's a very difficult ratchet-based monetary policy, which is also why Bitcoin is amazing. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not trying to say that the halving is bad, but it puts a lot of stress on the miners, because either Bitcoin has to go up 2x to make up for what they've lost, or they're net having additional pressure put on their business. So it's a really difficult piece to grapple with. And over the last several cycles, we've of course seen the price appreciate to a point where it surpassed that barrier, but it's unclear if it'll work like that for the long term. And we've seen short-term spikes based on transaction fees with orders and BRC20s and that sort of thing earlier this year, where the transaction fees actually exceeded the block reward for the first time since 2017, which is very positive for that long-term potential, but it's still unclear where these are very intermittent solutions. And that's where Core comes in, because what Core wants to do is provide this exogenous funding source to help smooth the curve of the earnings for the miners and the mining pools, because a stronger Core leads to a stronger Bitcoin and vice versa. And the strongest Bitcoin is very good for the space. So it's a really nice symbiotic cycle between all parties.
Tell us about the Core token. I know there was an airdrop and the tokenomics around that.
Yeah, so the Core token can be thought of as similar to any other base layer asset like an Ethereum, where it's used for gas, it's used for governance, and a variety of other on-chain purposes.
And you mentioned that there will be staking. Let's say a stake. You mentioned staking of actual Bitcoin. Would the rewards be in Core tokens?
So I can't talk too much about where that's going, but the idea is we want to build the best Bitcoin staking experience. So I'll leave it as a little bit of a teaser for now, but there'll be information to come not far from now.
Well, that's exciting. I definitely want to know about that, because it'd be awesome to be able to stake my Bitcoin and earn off of that. Now you have a ecosystem fund. I believe $2 million of core ecosystem fund to support developers. Can you tell us about that?
So 200 million, couple zeros left off. All good.
My bad.
All good. But one of the big focuses of Core, again, where there's this belief of that users and community are everything, is we have to find the best developers at the same time that want to go launch on Core to build these amazing products. And we're fortunate enough to have partners like BitGet and Maxi that view it the same way. And it's really been a privilege to talk to so many different amazing developers around the world that are looking to kind of fulfill the same goals. And it's been like, there's been a focus on gaming and DeFi, but the ecosystem collaboration in general is always open to chat with new folks. Core wants as many of the best builders that are already in the space, and then also the folks that are building like new and novel things, or of course Web2 developers. We're happy to meet and to chat and to find how we bring value to our users.
Now, there are, of course, the Bitcoin maxis, right? Those who don't believe in the multi-chain world. I'm curious, what's your strategy to kind of win those folks over, those who have been, in Bitcoin for a long time? I think more and more, though, we're seeing less and less maxis. But, what's your strategy to win over those folks who may hold a lot of Bitcoin?
So I think you're right. I think it's very positive to the space to see Maxiism dying generally. Like, I think most people are starting to warm up to the idea of alternative solutions and different pieces. And when it comes to like the hardest of the hardcore Bitcoin maxis that like are just happy with digital gold, I don't know if we'll ever fully appeal to them, to be totally honest, but that's okay. I think those folks may continue to warm up over time. I think one of the biggest unlocks for these folks, and again, we've had a lot of conversations in this department already, but it's really making Bitcoin a yield-bearing asset. I believe personally is one of the biggest keys to starting to unlock that. If you can do it in a safe way that allows you to generate yield in your Bitcoin, there's broad-based appeal there. And I think that's the beginning. I don't know that a lot of those folks will then move to like Bitcoin DeFi or anything like that immediately, but I think you start to like open up the floodgates there, because the reality is much of the Bitcoin holders are not maxis. They're just the loudest voices on Twitter. And I think it's very positive for the space to see those voices starting to, go away with each cycle.
For sure. Now we got the Bitcoin halving coming up next year, April 2024. How are you guys preparing for that? Does that impact Core in any way? And, just overall, your thoughts on the upcoming cycle.
So the halving is always a great event for crypto, because it brings all the eyeballs back onto crypto, at least for a brief period of time. And that's a good thing to bring Bitcoin back into the limelight in particular. And especially with the ETF kind of combining, it's a really potent potential combination for interest in the space. And so much of crypto is interest-based. So what I would say is one of the big things that we're doing right now is educational campaigns. We're going to continue to do this into the ETF. Core's audience is largely Web2 users versus Web3 users. So education is really important. And if you think about how many people in crypto today actually understand the halving, it's a smaller number than people would think. But as more and more people get into the space, again, from Web2 or even from just non-tech backgrounds, they need this educational understanding to really start to appreciate. Like, you think of all ETF folks out there that will soon have no idea of what's going on under the hood, because they won't have to, be exposed to some of these internals, if you will.
Right.
Another big focus for us is chatting with miners and mining pools, because we do want to help smooth that out. There is some doubt, even amongst like the largest pools in the world, of how much, how big of an issue will this be this cycle versus 3 cycles from now? Like, no one knows the answer to that fully. So the educational outreach there to let them know about Core is also a focus.
So the Bitcoin ETF wouldn't necessarily affect you at all, right? I mean, in a way, like you said, a lot of folks will not be able to maybe stake their Bitcoin, right, on the Core network. So they're kind of losing out from that aspect if they're not self-custodying. But do you see any negative effects to you guys with regards to the ETFs aside from that? Or it's just, look, it is what it is. It's a financial product, but those who are self-custodying and, they still have the option to go through to Core and stake.
So we view the ETF as solely positive. It's one, legitimacy of having an exchange traded product of a spot Bitcoin, like that's incredible. It's something that we've been, excited about from the Winklevoss original proposal 10 years ago. It brings a ton of legitimacy to the space. Anyone in their retirement accounts can start to buy it, and then the biggest funds in the world can now hold it because they don't have the restrictions around custody. So I do think it's amazing. It'll bring a lot of new interest into crypto generally, and people to no longer give Bitcoin that like alternative asset type, moniker that it's always had. It now, becomes part of the center stage of the show, if you will. And so both of those are just really huge for the space, and I think is very good for crypto. I think we'll see a variety of other ETFs. Like I think Blackstone and several others have announced their Ethereum ETFs. So I think in general, the institutional adoption of the space is very good. If you can self-custody, of course, being crypto for a very long time, such as myself, you should always continue to self-custody. I do think longer term, you will see ETFs that either are staking the Bitcoin behind the hood or Ethereum when the Ethereum ETFs come out. So I do think eventually that will make its way back to users in some way, but that's, several years down the road type thing. But I do think you'll see eventually that work its way in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, with regards to Bitcoin mining, we're seeing an expansion of Bitcoin mining in the US. Many different states now are embracing it. It's creating a lot of jobs locally and much more. Texas, where you're based, booming, right? So many miners down there now. Do you expect like other countries to get into the mix to start mining, kind of like what El Salvador is doing? It's a government initiative, right? Making Bitcoin a legal tender, Bitcoin mining possibly being used to monetize excess energy or energy that would go to waste. What are your thoughts on the future of mining?
Really hard to say. It's like mining is one of those also like very interest-based cycles, and obviously there's a factor of like Bitcoin's price that drives a lot of that interest.
Right.
I do think that there will be more nation-state level involvement in Bitcoin as it is this potential exogenous funding source, and again could be a better digital gold if it gets additional like more widespread distribution. So I'm very keen to watch that play out. At a minimum, it's a great use of your excess energy. So like there is for all of the heat that Bitcoin mining takes in relation to energy consumption and that sort of thing, it is a great use of excess energy that exists.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to throw it at you. It's okay if you can't answer. Do you have a Bitcoin price prediction all-time high for this upcoming cycle?
I'd really just be guessing for you. I have no idea where Bitcoin will be in the next couple of years, but I've got a very high degree of confidence that 10 years from now, it's a pretty different price from where it is today.
Got it. A very, very PC answer there, but that's okay. I know no one wants to put their neck on the line saying, "Hey, this is the number," and then it doesn't happen, right? In addition to what you guys are doing, and certainly I would call it another financial product with the staking that you're working on. Is there other financial or incentivized programs or projects you're working on with regards to Bitcoin? Some of you may not be able to tell me about because it's on the wraps right now, but anything else that you're working on?
So we'll announce, I think probably next month, our full Bitcoin roadmap that will come out in 2024. But that's really kind of the tip of the iceberg. I think if you think about it's just at a very high level without kind of going too far into the details, Bitcoin holders tend to want to deal in Bitcoin all the way through the cycle. And that's something that we're very aware of as we design these products to try to make a very seamless experience that Bitcoin holders will be comfortable using as they go down that maturation curve from just digital gold to more utility.
What are your thoughts on layer 2 scaling solutions such as a Lightning Network to help increase the adoption of Bitcoin to be able to use it from a day-to-day perspective? Because obviously, the network fees, transaction speed times, and so forth are not conducive to everyday use, but the Lightning Network is looking to solve that. What are your thoughts on the Lightning Network? And I know there's quite a few companies working on this. Which ones do you think might be the leaders?
So I think Lightning Network is one of these amazing developments that just hasn't been able to really find product market fit. It's something that we stay close to, and we hope there's continued innovation there. Like seeing Bitcoin as more of a medium of exchange is something that I think everybody in crypto wants to see. It's just, can we, like, as of now, it's kind of a square peg in a round hole. However, I think continued developments of Lightning might be able to unlock that. But there's just a bunch of challenges with adoption, with how the channels are structured. But I do think we'll continue to see that. What I would say on the scaling side, you can see groups like Core, like Stacks, other people that are trying to propose these more exogenous systems to how to scale Bitcoin in an aligned way. I'm not sure at the end of the day, like how that all plays out 5 years from now, but I think what you can see is a common thread amongst all these different groups where everybody's trying to help scale and add utility to Bitcoin, which I think is very accretive to Bitcoin at the end of the day. I am a firm believer that we should not add to the Bitcoin base layer. I think the Bitcoin base layer is this ossified, this ossified system, and if anything was to happen to that, I do think it could potentially black hole the space or really bring us down to a bad place. So I'm a pretty firm believer in these other technologies helping to scale it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, regards to crypto regulations, right? That may not, crypto regulations right now wouldn't necessarily affect Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin has clarity as a commodity, and miners are doing their thing in the United States. But Core and other blockchains may be affected by this, as we're still waiting for full clarity in the United States. What are your thoughts on how crypto regulations have been proceeding? We got a couple of bills in the House. Are you optimistic we get something soon, or maybe it's till 2025 after the election?
So we don't tend to comment on anything like in any specific regulatory regime. What I'd say is there's been a lot of inspiring work done outside the US to try to help get clarity. And I would hope that as the US matures, it gets to a similar level of clarity.
Yeah, for sure. And with regards to, I would love to get your thoughts on NFTs and the metaverse, these things that are branches off the tree of the crypto tree. What are your thoughts? And is Core looking to do anything along those lines?
So Core is looking to bring wherever there's demand, like amazing applications to, and I think one of which is NFTs. NFTs, I think we've seen are at the, if you look at like crypto, take a step back, crypto's really had two product market fit cycles. One was speculation, that's kind of died down, but will kind of always be there. The other is stable coins. And that's the real killer app right now as part of like crypto generally. It's an amazing 10x better improvement for billions of people around the world. NFTs are at the speculation phase of that cycle. They haven't really found the actual product market fit on top of it. However, there's many, many promising potential improvements that can be made on that. I mean, if you think of NFTs for all sorts of like real world use cases, it's an amazing solution. There's a lot of real world challenges that also have to be, solved as part of it. But I think maybe it's this cycle or maybe it's the next. We will find more real world use cases for it. And I think NFTs will become incredibly useful going forward.
Yeah, and to your point, I can't wait for NFTs to be put into the real world. Look, artwork is itself is one aspect, right? Collectibles, that's fine. But, powering, let's say, deeds to houses and contracts and movie tickets and whatever else comes along with that to unlock experiences, I can't wait for that to be fully mainstream. Now, as far as DeFi, obviously, some of what Core is looking to do is DeFi related, but DeFi itself has had a lot of challenges, right? There have been a lot of exploits and hacks and so forth. Is it simply that we are in 1.0 DeFi and we just need further iteration to build the guardrails and security, make the security features much better?
So I think even though crypto's been around for, let's call it 15 years, like it's still very early in its overall adoption and advancement cycle. And if you think about how long it took to get Web 2 right, it was a long time coming, or just the internet generally, right? It started in the 60s. And I think crypto has a long way to go there. I think a lot of the original DeFi use cases, again, were more speculative in nature, but I think we're starting to see many more products that have much broader appeal. So a great example is you're seeing interest-bearing savings, stable coins. You're seeing like digitized T-bills. Like this is really going to change it because you're now going after a much broader set of potential users that are actually replacing something in their actual life today, not using it as some new source of like temporary yield. And I think we're going to continue to see that sort of evolution path over the next several years, because if you look at like Tether as one business, like that's an enormous company right now. And that's, again, like a very small amount of money in the grand scheme of the world. And it's one of those pieces where I think more DeFi developers will start to build these more practical applications, and there's a lot of real world good that can be done as part of that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I got some wrap up questions here for you. If you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be about?
My own metaverse. This is going to sound like probably cliche. It would probably be a school if I was going to do a metaverse. And the reason being is I think like one of the things that we've learned with like remote learning and that sort of thing overall is like the quality of children's education, whether it's, in the US or otherwise, can be questionable. However, there's amazing teachers out there that just need a platform, and something like the metaverse could be an amazing way to do that. We now have amazing AI technology that can grade papers and do homework assignments and do whatever. And we could get to a spot where, you have the best third grade teachers in the world that are teaching audiences of 500,000 at a time or whatever. And I think that's a place where it's like a much more well-educated society. And I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think the metaverse is going to be huge in schools and the way people do schooling in the future, and in a global community, because you can log in from anywhere. So it's going to be a fascinating world. And I got some rapid fire questions here for you. Favorite food?
Favorite food? Probably chicken parmesan. I've always enjoyed chicken parmesan.
Favorite musician or band?
Jefferson Airplane.
Favorite movie?
Probably like Step Brothers or something stupid like that.
Favorite book?
Finite and Infinite Games. Great book, especially if you're in crypto.
Gotta check that one out. And what do you do for fun as a hobby?
I read quite a bit. I also enjoy exercise. It's a great way to de-stress. Crypto is a very stressful industry to be a part of, and sometimes just lifting up heavy things and putting them down is a good way to de-stress.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I definitely have built that into my daily schedule to work out because crypto can be stressful for sure. Rich, pleasure chatting with you. I'm excited for the future updates around Core, and I can't wait for that Bitcoin staking. I will be first in line to use that. But thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.